So I got this iPhone around a month ago at launch, and unlike any reviewers on YouTube, this is my first iPhone ever. So I think I have a very different experience with it compared to someone who had the 13 series or even any older iPhones. I noticed that most reviewers online had mostly negative reviews about the 14 series this year, which is very interesting, but I completely understand why. It is just very similar to the 13 Pro, which was also not very different from the 12 Pro, which was very similar to the 11 Pro, and you get the idea. But as I said in my first impression video, this is my first iPhone ever, and in my experience this is the best phone that money could buy in 2022. It has the best battery in a phone without any doubt, and it lasts me a day and a half, which is like roughly 9 to 11 hours of screen on time, which is insane. There is nothing that comes to this level of battery life. It has also got the best cameras on a phone right now. I mean, I know that other phones like the S22 Ultra and the Google Pixel 7 Pro are competing in terms of cameras, but the iPhone is just more complete and consistent overall. It ticks all the boxes for a good camera, absolutely the best in videos and of course cinematic mode. It also takes great photos from all lenses. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still think there are some negatives like the blown out highlights and the over sharpening in photos, but other than that, it is really good. The micro mode is cool, maybe not that useful, but it is wild being able to see all these details. The ultra wide in general is good, but I'm just not the biggest ultra wide guy if I'm being honest. But my favorite thing about the cameras is the portraits that those cameras take. Sometimes I just look at some of the portraits from this phone and I would be like, there's no way a phone took this photo. I usually use 2x and 3x to shoot portraits because it just looks more natural, especially on faces, because the more you zoom in, the better and more realistic people's faces will be. However, I see a lot of people complain that they want more than just 3x zoom, but I don't find any more than 3x useful, to be honest. I mean, yeah, I get that you might use the 5x or 10x sometimes, but I never found myself needing more than 3x. However, when it comes to the screen, things get very interesting. The high brightness is very underrated. You can see the screen in direct sunlight, which is very useful, even though we live in the UK and we hardly ever see the sun. But you get my idea. I can't overstate the number of times where I was outside and tried to use my phone, but I wasn't able to see anything, so high brightness is always welcome. The screen in general is very smooth with the high refresh rate, but that dynamic island, I have some mixed feelings about it. The idea is really cool. You can see live stuff on it like a timer or getting directions, but it also feels like it is too early and not many apps are getting much use out of it. And it just ends up more distracting than a simple notch. Especially when watching videos, it feels like it's in the way, but when it works very well and it can be very useful, and overall I still prefer it over a notch and still think it's a great step forward, but I would like to see more things to get advantage of it. One of the most controversial things about this phone is the always on display, and I can see why people hate the idea of it and they think that their phone is on all the time. But again, because I didn't have an iPhone before, it just works perfect for me. I mean, I can easily tell when it's dim, that means it is off, and when it's bright, it means it's on. I mean, there's just a big difference between when it's on or off. So overall, I'm loving the always on display because it tells you useful informations like notifications and widgets, and the battery percentage as well, while not consuming much power. I know everyone is like, oh no, the always on display is killing my battery, but in my experience, not really. I did a test on it to try and see how much power it uses, and it took an hour and a half to just drop by 1%. So in a whole day it will consume about 3 to 5%, and I'm willing to give out those 5% to enjoy a cool feature. And when I need to save battery, I just put it on power saving mode, which turns the always on display off and lowers the refresh rate and lowers the brightness, which saves a lot of power. And if you don't believe me, there are a lot of reviews about the always on display, and so many people have done tests on it, and the overall conclusion is that it does take some power, but not very significant power. And if you like it, you should still use the always on display, and you shouldn't worry about it taking too much power. Because the phone is a bit heavy and the materials that Apple used to build this phone are very premium, the phone feels like a piece of jewelry in your hand. But because it's heavy and large, sometimes it's hard to reach the top of the screen, so having a pop socket and using the reachability shortcut is very useful, and I use it a lot to reach the top of the screen. And speaking of the pop socket, the MagSafe has been an amazing experience for me. It just opens a very wide range of accessories that you could use to improve your experience with this phone. I've done a full video on the accessories that I got from my iPhone. I will link that in the description below. But yeah, overall I'm having a great experience. The software is very smooth, everything is working smoothly, especially with other Apple devices like my Mac, my iPad and my AirPods. The whole ecosystem is just so useful and unique, and I understand why people love it. But I would say this phone is just really expensive. I've got it for like £1,200 because it's more expensive here in the UK. But I mean, if you want to invest in a good phone, this is probably the best phone right now. I also thought I would miss Touch ID, but I really didn't, because the Face ID is really good on the iPhone. As soon as I pick it up, it's open and I can see all the notifications, and Face ID works just fine in low light, which is something that other phones struggle on. And that's it for this video. Hope you guys found that useful, and thank you for watching.